All right, we're going to get things started. Hello, everyone. My name is Gabriela Castellanos, and I am the TTA specialist on the BJA Planning Performance and Impact Team, or the PPI team for short. Today, we will be sharing some important info on updates made to the post-conviction testing of DNA questionnaire ahead of the July 7th reporting date. A couple announcements, some housekeeping. This session is being recorded and a copy of the presentation slides will be given to all participants following this training. But if you experience any technical difficulties during this session, feel free to reach out to me via private chat message, or I have my email on the screen. You can also reach out that way. What I will say is one common technical difficulty that users experience is access to the WebEx via browser versus the app. If you're able to get access to the app, we recommend that you use that platform instead. To submit a question, you can use the Q&A function at the bottom right-hand side of the screen. We will answer questions as they come in, but then we'll come to a full stop so we can answer them verbally at the end of the session when we have our Q&A session. But for more complex questions or those that require additional explanation, we will address that at the end, or we will follow up with you via email. Next slide. The chat box will also be used by panelists to share links and resources with you guys as we move along through our presentation. I'm now going to introduce our presenters. Here to aid in both presentation and the question and answer portion, we have our analyst, Eva Juarez, the research associate for the Planning, Performance, and Impact team. We have Armani Avent, who's also a research associate for the team. And then to support with other content and Q&A, we have myself, and then we have my colleague Liz Wayne, the performance measure tool subject matter expert. We also have some members from the policy team to assist you with questions as necessary. Here is a quick overview of the agenda. We're going to go over performance measure review, the process recap, and then data reporting, the what, the where, the when, so the very basics of all reporting, and then get into the specifics of the post-conviction questionnaire structure and the new updates that have been made to the questionnaire. We will then wrap up with some resources for you guys to access, as well as do the Q&A session to wrap everything up. Let's get into it. So what is performance management? So performance management is the process by which programs and grantees regularly collect data on their grant activities to determine whether they are implementing activities as intended and achieving their desired goals and objectives. Using performance measures that capture outputs and outcomes over time enable pre- and post comparisons that can be used to address change. The performance measures and resulting data support analysts to identify trends, patterns, insights that can inform programs' decisions and improvements and demonstrate the success of grant activities and compliance to regulations. You can find additional information and several resources on the Office of Justice Programs, our OJP, Grant Performance Measurement and Progress Reporting Information Portal on the BJA Performance website listed. So why do we use performance measures? BJA uses performance measures to understand how funds are being distributed, as BJA and OJP regularly track progress towards goals and develop various reports using annual key performance indicators. To track grant activity and progress towards program goals, they enable BJA to respond to external questions like congressional inquiries, media requests, and so on. We use them to identify areas of success and potential areas of improvement. Performance measures identify needs for TTAs like myself, or revisions to program design and implementation. Finally, BJA uses performance measures to comply with the law and complete BJA's required reporting. The tracking of progress through performance measurement is required by the Government Performance and Results Modernization Act of 2010, the Digital Accountability and Transparency Act of 2014, and the Grant Reporting Efficiency and Agreements Transparency Act of 2019. Some data is also required to be reported to various government agencies and Congress to respond to FOIA requests. So what are the benefits to grantees? Performance measurement has benefits for your organization and your program. By systematically monitoring performance measures as well as your own data, you can help identify what's working well and what might need some changes. This can help you make data-driven decisions to manage and improve your grant program. Additionally, the data that you provide allows BJA to provide targeted training and technical assistance and resources to grantees that may need it most. Performance measurement data can also be used as evidence that you are meeting your goals. This can help you with program sustainability and help you advocate for additional resources for your program. Now I'm going to get into the what, the where, the when of how reporting requirements work. We're going to review each of these next. So every program in BJA has a structured set of questions, but two general sections of the questionnaire and data you will report on are performance measures, which is a series of questions related to the outputs and outcomes attributable to grant activities, and the project progress questions, a series of questions related to the grantee's specific goals, objectives, barriers, and successes. But for post-conviction, and for the purpose of this training, the performance measures for your grant program can be found at the link on the screen. We encourage you to become familiar with the performance measures before you report if it's your first time. Additionally, you can use the questionnaire as a guide to track relevant data in your files in the time interval that is easiest for you. But when it's time to report, you can add those figures and get your reporting period totals. Where do I report data? You are to report in the performance measurement tool, otherwise known as the PMT. Some of you might be already familiar. This is one of the online data collection tools for OJP's grant recipients. Twice a year, in January and July, post-conviction grantees are required to report grant activity in the PMT and then upload a PDF of the PMT report directly into JustGrants to fulfill their reporting requirements. The PDF document will need to be generated and saved on your local computer so that it can then be uploaded to JustGrants with your regular semi-annual performance report. When creating your report, you will be given a chance to leave any comments about your data submission that you feel are relevant. An instructional video for uploading this report into JustGrants is linked on this slide. You can also access the PMT by following the link on the page. Which contains, the PMT also contains links to various resources and tools to assist you in reporting. Finally, when do I report data? Here is the reporting schedule for post-conviction PMT reporting. Both reporting periods require semi-annual questions and a JustGrants upload, like I mentioned before. However, please note, it is highlighted in red. For the upcoming reporting period, the PMT will be open July 7th, 2025 to input data for the January 1st, January 30th, 2025 reporting period. The submission period deadline will remain July 30th as shown on the screen. Otherwise, the only time that reporting requirements would go outside of the dates listed would be if you were filing out the last report of your award. This report requires performance measures, narrative questions, closeout questions, and an upload to JustGrants. With that all being said, I'm going to now pass it along to Ava to get into the specifics of the post-conviction questionnaire. Take it away, Ava.
Thank you, Gabriela. As Gabriela mentioned, my name is Eva Juarez. I am a research associate here, and I will be now covering the structure of the questionnaire and any updates that have been made. Next one. So categories or purpose areas were introduced in recent solicitations, and the questionnaire has been updated to reflect that change. Category 1 is intended for case review and DNA testing, while Category 2 is intended to improve the preservation of biological evidence and/or the modernization of record storage systems. Based on the award category, grantees will be directed to respond to a different set of questions. What you see here is how the questionnaire sections are broken up based on award category. All grantees will be prompted to respond to questions in those top sections: general award administration, training, program outreach, final report questions, which should only appear at your final reporting period, and semi-annual narrative questions. Only Category 1 grantees will see questions within the case review, evidence searches, DNA analysis, forensic genealogy, and exoneration sections. The preservation of biological evidence and modernization of files sections will only appear for Category 2 grantees. Additionally, only grantees from 2023 and before will respond to questions within the case identification sections. And the sections that I will cover now are those that are either new or significant. Okay. The exoneration sections are of the questionnaire, is a new section of the questionnaire, and it only applies to Category 1 grantees. It asks about any exonerations that took place during the reporting period. There are only 2 questions within the section, and they are how many DNA exonerations took place during the reporting period and how many non-DNA exonerations took place during the reporting period. DNA exonerations must be attributable to case activity and funds from this grant where DNA evidence contributed to exonerations, and non-DNA exonerations are those that occurred at least in part due to activity funded under the grant. For example, a case was initially reviewed under the post-conviction program, but later determined not to proceed for continued review using award funds, and the claimant was eventually exonerated, though DNA testing was not conducted and or relevant to the case. The preservation of biological evidence section is also new, but this one only applies to Category 2 grantees. Some of the questions in this section include: does your agency have an implementation plan for locating, recording, storing, and retaining biological evidence in adjudicated cases? How many cases were targeted for evidence preservation during the reporting period? And were any cases of biological evidence located during the reporting period? Again, these are only a few of the questions that you will see in this section if you are a Category 2 grantee. This is the last of the new sections that were added, the modernization of files section, and again, it only applies to Category 2 grantees. This section covers the digitization of targeted cases. If no cases were digitized, though, this section can be skipped entirely. Otherwise, some of the questions that are in this section include indicating the types of records that were digitized during the reporting period, whether any records identified that will not be uploaded to the database and will be disposed, and was a record retention system implemented under this grant. Again, these are only a few of the questions in the section. Next. Finally, the case identification section. This should look familiar to some grantees, as it was in the previous version of the questionnaire. It asks the number of new post-conviction cases identified by grant funds, the approximate number of hours spent by case identification, and other activities designated to identify post-conviction DNA cases of violent felony offenses where DNA analysis might demonstrate actual innocence. This section will remain visible to all grantees from 2023 and before, but any of the new grantees, 2024 and anyone after, will not see this section of the questionnaire, either in PMT or in the questionnaire that will be posted online. I will now pass it on to my colleague, Armani.
Thank you, Eva. So I'll pick up with the final section of the questionnaire being the semi-annual narrative questions. These questions allow for space for you to add any additional information or details that you feel may be relevant to any of the questions in this section or the grant overall. These questions include: what were your accomplishments, including any progress made towards achieving your grant-funded program goals? Also, what major activities are planned for the next 6 months? Sorry. Next slide. I'm sorry, and these questions do apply to both Category 1 and Category 2 grantees, and they will appear every reporting period. Next, we have defining those goals and objectives. When responding to the narrative questions, you will need to define the goals that you have for your program. It is important to write well-defined goals and objectives to clarify your priorities and highlight criteria for success from the very beginning. Please keep in mind that your goals should be SMART, and that SMART mnemonic walks users through important dimensions of a good goal or objective. They should be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. To start off, for it to be specific, you want to state exactly what your program will accomplish. In order for it to be measurable, you want to determine what evidence will be used to indicate progress. And if needed, please feel free to break down larger goals into smaller ones that are more measurable. That way it makes it easier to track the progress that you make throughout the funded program. When it's achievable, you want to make sure that the goal is reasonable and can be accomplished within a certain time frame. If it's too lofty, please feel free to reevaluate and break it down into something more manageable. And when it is realistic, those goals should be relevant to your program and the objectives of BJA's larger grant program. And last but not least, when your goals are timely, they should have a realistic deadline to keep tasks and activities on track. It is good practice to review and reevaluate your goals semi-annually to determine if changes are necessary and assess your progress. Please make sure to use the data to describe how you are doing, as well as anecdotes that describe the good work you are doing and its impacts. Next slide. Thank you. We would also like to share some tips that your program can take from the very beginning to improve your data quality. First, you want to ensure that you are completing a single questionnaire for each program area and project or initiative. It is recommended that a designated staff person coordinates all performance measure data collection and entry to ensure consistency. If this is the first time you will report data, please make sure you are familiar with the data you will need to collect and report. You can do this by reviewing the PDF version of the questionnaire. And you would probably want to ensure a backup person or persons are aware of the data collection and reporting process so that they can fill in if the designated staff person is unavailable or leaves the role. Consider available data collection methods, including case management systems or other databases, spreadsheets, tracking intake forms, or other methods. If partner organizations are included in your program design, be sure to engage from the start in the planning process. Determine if formalized agreements are needed to ensure the data that's being collected is necessary and the program meets its goals and or objectives. And then last, ensure that all data you receive from the contracted service providers are reviewed as well as validated before completing a data entry. And do not worry, the system will alert you on any missed questions if you miss anything. Next slide. So I'd like to introduce a few of the resources that are provided within the slideshow. Next slide. On the BJA website, you can find a frequently asked questions page that will be helpful throughout your award. We've highlighted some of those questions from the webpage for the slide. So the first one that can be found is, can an applicant have subawards? The answer is yes. If an applicant proposes to make one or more subawards, they should, one, identify the proposed subrecipient, and two, describe in detail what each subrecipient will do to carry out that federal award for the program. Another question you can find on that site is, can funds be used for training personnel? And it says, in limited circumstances, funds may be used for training directly related to case identification, case review, location of biological evidence, and the DNA analysis of that biological evidence. And one or more of those questions that can be found is, can funds be used for litigation activities? The answer is yes. Those funds can be used for litigation to support a claim of innocence to achieve exoneration. And if you would like to see more of those questions and responses, we will be sharing the link to that page following this training. Next slide. And I would like to pass it back to Gabriella to kind of wrap up this training presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Harmony. All right, so it's especially important to note as we approach the July reporting period to know the difference between which help desk to contact so that your issues and questions can be resolved quickly. So you can contact the PMT help desk if you have questions on the following. Questions on performance measures. If you'd like to schedule a TTA session for staff on data collection, PMT reporting, or understanding performance measures. PMT questions and account creations, if you'd like to unlock previously submitted reports, or if you'd like to create a semi-annual PMT report. You can then contact the Just Grants help desk with the following: account creation and Just Grants, navigating Just Grants to find progress reports, unlocking the account to help with passwords, roles and permissions such as grant award administrator or entity administrator, any error messages that you may get, and uploading, attaching documents. Like Armani mentioned, on this slide are a few websites that are worth bookmarking so that you can go back and reference them. There are also other various training videos on the BJA YouTube channel that may be useful to you as well. But yes, this along with a recording of this presentation and a copy of the slides will be sent to you between now and the upcoming weeks. So with all that being said, I understand that that was a lot of information. So I'd like to open the floor to any participants who have questions. Again, you can click on the tab labeled Q&A. And you can choose all panelists as the recipient and send in your questions. I'm going to check now, and it seems we have a couple already. So for Melissa, we have a question asking if there is a template with all of the questions in the PMT tool. I believe what you're referencing is the questionnaire itself. And yes, I will put the chat into the chat, the questionnaire. It is also available on the performance measure website. I will post that as well. This is a great question. From David, we have a question. How do we know if we are Category 1 or Category 2 grantees?
Gabriella, do you want me to come off mute to answer that one?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay, I think I put it in the pod, but I'm, not so good at the Q&A. So hi, everybody. My name is Andrea Borchardt. I'm in the policy office here at BJA, and one of the programs I oversee is this post-conviction testing of DNA evidence program. So we, almost everybody is in Category 1. The only people who are in Category 2 is newly launched in FY24. There's only 2 grantees in that category. OCME, it's the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner in New York, is in that, and then Connecticut Office of Emergency Services. So Connecticut and New York OCME are the only 2. Everybody else would be in Category 1.
Thank you, Andrea. All right, next question. Oh, which was answered. Michelle needs more clarity on if there is a change in the PMT questions.
Thank you, Roland. So yeah, I think it was Eva who went through some of the changes in the slide deck. There were some slight modifications to those, and I believe there will be a link that's provided to the updated questions. They're mostly just, hey, Michelle, it's just a couple of minor modifications. So like, do you have a non-DNA exoneration and some clarification of some terms? So that was Eva provided an overview earlier in the slide deck, and I believe a link will be provided.
All right, I've put that in the chat, and again, I will share the slides in a email that will follow this training. For grant recipients from fiscal year 2022, other than the 2 questions for Category 1, oops. Lost it. Does the PMT questionnaire look the same?
I can take that in. Hey, Kathy. Yeah, there's very limited changes to the questionnaires. So this, just to let you know, everybody in the training is from kind of all of our years of recipients. So we wanted to make sure any changes, it could be clear to everybody, but they're just minor modifications for category, for the FY22 and category 1. So it's, again, that non-DNI exonerations and a couple of tweaks of some of the language. It should be pretty straightforward. So I don't think you guys have to worry about really major updates or changes to the way you're collecting your information. You guys always do a great job. And I'm seeing, Alyssa, you have a question about the revision date. And I'm going to look at this right now. So these revisions take a long time to get through the process. So there's a question whether or not the link that says this was most recently revised September 2024, is that up to date? And I'm almost positive that is correct. We've been working on these for about 2 years. It takes a long time to get some of these changes through all the approvals and through all the systems. So this is just sort of the official launching of them for you. But this revision that's in the link is what has been referenced in the training today.
All right. If we're category 1, but have some insight into some of the things tracked by category 2 through our work, would it be okay to include that in the narrative question that asks about other things going on in the criminal justice system?
Yes, in the narrative, absolutely. You can put as much information that would be useful to us. If you also want to schedule a call with us to help as we're revising those, and again, we just launched that section this year. This is the first reporting period. I think anyone will be reporting information there. So if you have feedback for us or if you have information, it can go in the narrative section, but please do not include it in the numerical section for category 2.
Question from Catherine. Does BJA have dates in mind for our semi-annual check-in?
I sent an email out to all of the post-conviction grantees earlier this year. I think it was roughly March-ish, may have been April. Due to some staffing reductions we had to reconsider the cadence of our semi-annual check-in calls. So the email described that we would select just kind of a subgroup of the whole cohort of grantees to check in with. If you'd like to be included in the next round of check-ins, we're more than happy to do that with you. But based on our staffing reductions, we had to reevaluate some of the activities that we were completing in this program. So if you want to be included, just please send me and or Vanessa Castellanos an email, and we can include you in the fall check-ins. Otherwise, we'll continue with our kind of cadence of kind of randomly selecting grantees for those check-ins. That all being said, if anybody needs our attention on anything or needs some have some conversations, we're always happy to do that. It's just the proactive outreach for those semi-annual check-ins we had to scale back a little bit. Gabriella, I think we lost. Did we lose you? We lost your video.
Oh, no, I shut my video off, but I am waiting for any additional questions to come through. We'll give it a couple more minutes as attendees are thinking. As we wait for any other questions that come in, I'm going to bring up a slide from earlier in the presentation, which includes a note about the PMT opening on July 7th, 2025 for the January-June 30th reporting period. This is a little different from usual, as the usual reporting date or opening date will be pushed back a week. However, you guys will still receive a welcome to reporting email to notify you when the PMT is open. Additionally, the reporting deadline will remain July 30th. Okay, I'm going to give it about 60 more seconds, and then I will wrap up with some contact information if you'd like to follow up with our team following this meeting. All right. One last note, here are ways you can stay connected. We are on all social media platforms. And for more information on funding opportunities, you can visit BJA's website, which is in the QR code on the screen, as well as the link that is hyperlinked on the slide. But if you have any more complex questions, if you'd like an individual TTA session, or if you have any questions on these performance measure questionnaires, if there's a resource that you think that you would like, you can feel free to contact me at gabrielacastellanos@usdoj.gov. But other than that, I'd like to thank you all for your participation in this training. Your questions are really valuable to us, and we hope that you got a lot out of this meeting. One last time, I'm going to remind you all that we will be sending out a copy of the slides as well as all needed resources. And eventually on our BJA YouTube page, we will be posting a recording of this training. But other than that, thank you all for coming. We're going to wrap things up now. Thanks, everyone.